Okay. Hello, Aries. Welcome to Catalyst Energies and welcome to your weekly astrology forecast. We are looking at the fourth lunar quarter, which starts on Sunday, December 26th, 2021, with our third quarter moon in Libra. It's going to square the sun in Capricorn and move through the week up until the new moon, which is on the first, it is the first new moon of 2022, which is going to be on the 2nd of January 2022. So right after New Year's Day, right after the calendar year switches over, and we are in a whole new place. So Aries, welcome. Thank you for being here. So what we're looking at right now, though, is the chart for the 24th and then soon the 25th, because before we can even get into the fourth quarter leading to the next new moon, there are so many impactful astrological transits in the next 2 days, Friday and Saturday, that what I'm finding is that most of these reports that I'm doing for the astrology forecast per sign, they're really focusing on these aspects. So there is going to be a generalized astrology report looking at the week in general, and I will go into more detail about the transits themselves, and certainly spend a little bit more extra time on the transits that are throughout the week leading up to the new moon. But I really wanted to unpack a little bit more these weekend transits because they are so massive that they just deserve a lot of attention. And since we are really trying to unpack them in relation to what areas of life each sign is experiencing these in, I just want to give it some extra attention. So we will talk about the new moon, but really a lot of this is setting the stage for closing out not only the current lunar cycle, but this cycle started with a total solar eclipse. And so there are many layers to this, right? There are many aspects of the cycle that are unfolding in different timelines, or maybe in different it's not really timelines, but in a different timing, right? And so we're closing out a cycle, and how big these transits are is really important. So Aries, we're gonna start there and just kind of work our way through it over the next probably about 30 minutes or so. So Aries, first house in Aries, you tend to be the model for how the astrological calendar is naturally, or certainly traditionally, set up. The astrological new year is the March equinox, okay? And not January like our calendar, our Gregorian calendar. So, as Aries, you tend to really match the natural progression in terms of where your houses are situated. So Aries, the first thing, there's a number of transits that are happening on Friday the 24th and on the 25th that are all very big and all related to each other. So the first one is, there's two of them, and they are happening right as the day turns over onto the 24th in terms of East Coast time on the United States. So either late evening on the 23rd into the night in the early morning on the 24th. And those are, number one, this opposition with a Leo moon and Jupiter in Aquarius, both in the last degrees of each sign, which is very critical. You can also see that that is part of a larger grand square that is involved with the nodal axis of the moon. So it's a little less obvious with the opposition between K2 and Rahu, or the south and north node, but you can see the opposition here. But here is the main opposition with the moon and Jupiter, and then the square created around it. So this is something nobody's getting away from. These squares, especially a grand square, is probably one of the most difficult transits, I think, in the astrological experience, right? There's no getting around it. There's no getting under it. There's no going over it. There's only going through it. And not even necessarily that, but just leaning into the discomfort of every angle that is keeping us in this box. And so in galactic astrology, which, is how we read for the star seeds, these types of squares, especially a grand square, for instance, if you have a grand square in your natal chart, normally And for the most part, this does seem to be the case, that there's a lot of frustration and challenge in the person's life that is part of their soul's blueprint. But in galactic astrology, what that also does, and I find that this is the case for a lot of people in general, but starseeds, because they are so tapped into a mission, a specific galactic mission, that these squares really actually keep you on task and in your lane and keep you from straying too far. And it's the angle all the way around these cross purposes that are so uncomfortable. So this is one of these major events on the 24th. And then along with that, the same time, basically, Saturn in Aquarius is in a square exactly with a retrograde Uranus. Now, this has been building for a couple days now, and is exact on the 24th in just a number of hours, really. And then it will still be reverberating for a number of days after, because both of these titans, Uranus and Saturn, are very slow moving in relation to other planets. So they stay in proximity to each other a little bit longer. So they are going to reverberate whatever craziness comes out of their square angle with each other. So this grand square with Jupiter and the moon in Aquarius and Leo, and then another square between Saturn and Uranus at the same time. I mean, I don't know what to expect necessarily, but I know that it's going to be very, very impactful, very uncomfortable, and could be very disruptive and destructive as well. But also the potential for quantum leaps in growth is staggering with this as well. So let's start with the moon in Leo. For Aries, it's been going through your 5th house. And so in general, this Leo moon has seemed to really be leading people, and to be, people have been very sensitive to what their authentic voice is, their sovereign nature, and feeling it very strongly. And for Aries, this is your 5th house of expression, right? It is the Leo house. It's so authentically itself in the 5th house. And so the moon moving through this area, Aries, you may have found a very deep sensitivity to really needing to express, or certainly the deep feels of your joy and your passion, and your optimism. Perhaps this is a sensitivity to all of these things. Your creative expression, your authentic sovereign nature is really expressed and realized in the 5th house. And so Aries, as the moon has been moving through Leo, I think there's been a very strong sensitivity to really just being and feeling like yourself, right? It may have come out through some sort of creative or artistic expression. Perhaps you are in the midst of dating and romance, which is a very 5th house experience, and you may have found that you're very sensitive to just being your total badass, like confident self. Or you may have found that you're very sensitive and have a deep drive in some ways to really take some social risks, in order to have fun, right? You want to have fun. That's what happens in the 5th house. So Aries, this is happening, and then the opposition to Jupiter, both are at the very last degrees of each of their signs. And then Jupiter moves into Pisces on the 28th, which is going to be a sigh of relief for everybody. And for Aries in particular, to come into the 12th house is like, this is high priest energy all day, right? Coming in and managing the space of the transcendental, whereas Neptune has certainly been making it very powerful, very potent, certainly dissolving all boundaries so that there is nothing but the Akashic field or the quantum realm in this area for Aries. But once Jupiter makes its way in here and is like an advocate, this is like high priest, and take that very loosely, right? High priest type of energy, an advocate for your spiritual experience and a representative, an expansion into all of the things that you need in order to really align with the spiritual and transcendental. This is going to be a sigh of relief for everybody. And for Aries, it's going to give you an opportunity to really start exploring and understanding and expanding on the meaning of your spiritual life and what it means to truly be at one with the Great Spirit or Source or God, or just in a social sense, the experience of being fully empathic and connected to everyone else through your feelings and through your spirit. But the opposition between these two is on the 5th and 11th house. And so Jupiter having gone through the 11th house in terms of managing and advocating for social justice, for society in general. And it has been a very difficult transit of Aquarius, right? As soon as we have veered off path, Jupiter is just throwing lightning bolts to get us right back into line. It has been disciplining us in a way that I think we've desperately needed, but also has been so aggravating. So it'll be really nice, Aries, for Jupiter to come into Pisces, and you can actually focus on the spiritual nature instead of just the social order. Now, Saturn's doing that for you. Saturn is still in the 11th house. It is still anchored into the 11th house. There is a lot of authority, responsibility, a karmic responsibility, and certainly some structure and form in the realm of the social organism as a whole, in society as a whole for the Aries person. Now, the square to Uranus is going for the advice I'm giving people at this point is lighten up a little, right? Allow in some softness, right? Because these two are always, they don't get along at all. These are two titans. One is about the time and space and the reality of material existence, right? Saturn, Kronos, and then Uranus or Prometheus, which is the trickster, right? That is like a Stargate opening in your mind. It's your third eye. It is the gnosis that there is something very tangible but impalpable beyond just the material existence. And so when these two come into any relationship with each other, they're always going to just cause some shit. So for Aries, Uranus in its retrograde for all of us in Taurus right now is this opportunity that we've had to kind of like scroll through different versions of reality without really coming to a decision about what we're committing to, or not coming to a decision about what we actually want or what we can have. And in the realm of Aries, this is very much in your resources. So Aries, you may have found that there hasn't been a lot of stability in the material world that you're embedded in. So this could be your finances, your wealth, your assets, your energetic resources. Maybe your body in general is just constantly changing, Aries. Maybe you're getting genetic upgrades like crazy through Uranus. That is a very strong potential for Aries right now, because the second house is really our genetics, right? It is the physical reality that we're embedded in, and that is our DNA as well. That's part of it. We inherit that. And the second house is about the world we inherit, what we're born into. So there's not a lot of stability here, but what it is allowing for each of us to do is to innovate, to think outside of the box, to revolutionize, to wake up as a result of these shifts in the material world for Aries, very much in the world of assets. So this is necessary. And when Saturn comes into this square exactly, and what has been building is that for Aries, there's just a strong power structure in society in general, an authoritarian type of energy in society in general that is really making it hard to do anything but stay absolutely anchored and embedded in the social context. And what it potentially will not allow for, well, it will. Uranus is going to have Uranus's way, whether you like it or not, right? At the end of the day, Uranus represents something more than the material reality, and it will shatter material reality in this square if it needs to. And so lean into it. lean into it and allow yourself to have the instability in your material reality, and not be so embedded and reliant on something that certainly is useful and is important, right? The unfolding of the law of nature is absolutely essential to us, to building any kind of matrix of reality, and Saturn is the representation of that. And so there's something very important, and it's a backbone. It's providing a backbone in society in general, especially in Aquarius, okay? That we're all going to the same place, but we're all on different levels in this journey. Which is important. But if you are if you can't get yourself out of that particular structure entirely, Uranus will do it for you. And in some way that is going to shake up the very foundation of your physical reality, your assets, your materials, and your resources. So, and it's okay. Let yourself kind of innovate and think outside of the box in this realm, because once Uranus does station direct later in January, then these disruptions are going to be very much out in the actual world. And Aries people may find literal upheaval in their material, like their actual material reality. This could be the land itself. This could be your finances and your assets. So allow for this variability and this consistent, I would say, just lean into it and allow Saturn to be an anchor, but not be so firmly fixed and so authoritarian that the only way to, it'll break instead of bend, right? You have to lean into this square like as if you were, this is a really terrible analogy, but it really speaks to this, right? The idea that people, I don't know how true this is, but it does make sense to me that if you are in an accident and you've been drinking and you are, pretty intoxicated, your body is so loose that you are less likely to have serious injury. And I can say that for sure in other situations like biking, for instance, or like skateboarding. If you got, if your body is already very loose, and you don't have to be drinking. I'm just saying that if your body is very loose and it's very relaxed, you're less likely to sustain an injury. And this is so much of what this square represents for everybody. But for Aries, it has to do with the physical reality is not the same as society. And that's hard to really acknowledge or to wrap your head around when the very representative of time, space, and material reality is in society, and the authority is very staunchly planted there. Aries, you absolutely need to lean into this and allow for your mind and your higher mind to scroll through all of these potential assets and resources so that you have an impact later on society changing, right? So it's really important that we're all leaning into this, but for Aries in particular, it's okay that the physical reality that you are embedded in is not having a lot of stability right now, because it's allowing for you to actually wake up and for all of us to wake up. But for you, it's in something that's very, it's the soil, right? It's the soil that you're embedded in. So, but you have Saturn in society right now that's just like, no, everybody is exactly where they need to be, and we're all on the stairway up to heaven together, and that is absolutely true. And I think that there is a lot of value to that. But if you don't allow yourself to like glitch in and out of where else you could be on this staircase or even at the top, then Uranus will find its way, and this is where things break instead of bend or change. And so you want to change, you want to grow, you don't want to break. And there's such strong potential, especially at the holidays, right? And then you have the opposition with Jupiter and the moon, creating a grand square. There is so much tension. I can just been feeling it build for days, and it's just the agitation is just off the charts in a lot of ways. So on the 25th, which is the next day, we're going to find, number one, Venus in retrograde in your 10th house is going to meet Pluto again for the second time. And this time, the deep inventory that she represents in terms of the value and the meaning and the sensitivity to your mission, Aries, is going to be so much deeper, and there'll be more that you are willing and gracefully able to offer up to Pluto as an extension of the value and meaning of not just what you want, but what's good for everyone, right? That's this Queen of Pentacles, Queen of Discs, Queen of Keys energy, Venus in Capricorn. She is very wise, mature, and she knows exactly that she's responsible for more than just her own security and feeling good. So there is a very wise and mature offering that is based on some introversion and some deep inventory. This is Christmas Day, or the 25th, and along with that, Mars is in a conjunction with fixed star Antares and will be in a trine to Chiron. So Aries, Chiron is having such a strong impact on who you are as a person, how you identify yourself, how you present yourself to the world as a warrior, as a potent, as an agent of your desire and your actualization, right? This is a person who just goes for it and is everything about you, and what you present to the world is new and fresh and ambitious and yes, very fiery. Absolutely. You represent the spark of vitality, and Chiron has been pulling you out of yourself constantly in the way that Chiron does. So the victim narrative, the savior narrative, oh, that's a big one. The victim narrative can have you act in a certain way, and the savior narrative can have you act in a different way. But however you look at it, it is the first house for Aries that Chiron has been having such a huge impact. And now that it's direct, it's unavoidable, right? It's really coming out of the woodwork. So Mars, in conjunction with Antares in your 9th house, this is going to be a very forceful and assertive and possibly very aggressive sting, right? Mars as it rules your chart, right? And so it's going to be even more powerful for Aries, because not only is Mars rules your 1st house and is ruling this chart, it's also going to be in alignment with Archangel Uriel, or the heart of the Scorpion, right? Antares, and absolutely just spit that venom right into your very wound of self. And this is an incredibly healing moment. Now, it's going to come from belief systems. It's going to come from broader horizons. It's going to come from a larger cultural perspective, a metaphysical understanding. And this is very, very transmutational, Aries, because you have Sagittarius as your 9th house. Mars is going to be the spark that allows for the heart and the sting of the Scorpion, the truth when it comes to your belief systems and the bigger picture, and the meaning that you operate within is going to penetrate right into your deepest wounds, and it's going to be so healing if you can keep your eyes on the prize, Aries, right? The minute you allow yourself to get pulled back into old storylines and narratives about being a victim or wounded or your inner child, and there's plenty, and we're all going through it, Aries, but Mars as your chart ruler, right, that rules this chart, is going to spit the truth right at you, and it's going to be so liberating for who you are, but it is not going to be easy. So this is Christmas Day, right? This is the 25th, and at the same time, you have Venus and Pluto meeting again in your 10th house, and so part of your contribution and your mission, Aries, is really being exemplified through this process of really giving over parts of really taking an inventory of the meaning of what you're doing, and the ability to ascribe meaning to your contribution. Now, Mercury is here in your 10th house. Of course, the sun is now here. And so there is a lot of attention, Aries, right now in terms of your power, your institutional power. So Venus is very lovingly and very maturely offering aspects that need to be released and transformed. And of course, Pluto moving through this house for many years has been slowly but surely transforming what your mission really is and what you are here to contribute to. And it has something to do too with the meaning of it at all, right? The fire and the catalyzing fire that is the understanding and the meaning that allows for alchemy and transmutation to happen. Transmutation happens as a result of understanding. Once you understand, then you're able to bring these aspects together alchemically and create something new, which is, then what you contribute to, which is your 10th house. And so, but it's going to have a direct impact on a healing of self, Aries, and Mars is going to be Mars is like it's going to spit the truth right at you. And it's going to spit the truth in terms of the meaning, right? And from a much broader perspective, and coming from things like philosophies, collective values, paradigms, and the understanding that you've come to, especially when everything passed through Sagittarius. This is the realm of the solar eclipse. So that's also part of it as well, Aries. So this is just a Christmas weekend. Wow. When we're going to go to the third quarter moon, because the moon will be in Libra in your 7th house. And eventually, right after that, it's certainly going to be in opposition to Chiron as well. And, really, you're going to be feeling into and very sensitive to those aspects that will ground you or give you something to go back to in terms of your relationships in a time of chaos. We're all going to go through that, but for Aries people, it's going to be very much in your relationships and in your binding agreements that you are sensitive to, that will give you some emotional stability in a time of chaos that is really precipitated by this healing process in the first house for Aries. So hold on one second here. There we go. Okay, so the moon in Libra, like I said, is going to be in a square to the sun in your 10th house. And so in terms of your mission, your career, Aries, you are really finding yourself, and your voice and your focus is really on making sure that all the loose ends are tied up, okay? That the threshold can't be crossed until everything has been accounted for. And that is a very Capricornian thing in general, right? Patience, everything attended to, all the details exactly where they need to be, everything stacked up before we cross over into new territory, right? So the focus in terms of your career or your mission or your destiny is, you're really going to want to be very meticulous, not even meticulous, just thorough and making sure the whole thing is done, right? There's no laziness with Capricorn energy. So when it's related, Aries, to your mission or your career, your contribution is to be a leader or a ruler, right? The essence of Aries as a person is the spark, right? It is the warrior nature out in front. And when it comes to your contribution, that leads to you eventually being a leader or a ruler or somebody that is able to take political and social power and do something with it. So it's responsible to make sure everything's taken care of. Now, the moon is going to be nagging at all of us over here. For you, it's going to be in the realm of your binding agreements and in your interpersonal relationships that is like, well, I have to be able to visualize where I want to go next in my mind's eye if I want it to materialize. And this has to do specifically, Aries, with your relationships, your interpersonal relationships, and that any kind of relationship, domestic, sexual, business, right? Any binding agreement is the 7th house because it's the form of balanced relationship or justice or fairness. It's aesthetically balanced. The form of it is balanced in the scales. And so while you may be paying more attention to taking care of everything in the realm of your career and in terms of making sure that everything is done and accounted for before you take the next step, you're already feeling into, and this is the third quarter moon. It is a crisis in consciousness, and it's not mutually exclusive. You're just going to feel the tension. I feel on the inside, and I'm sensitive to my relationships and who I am in my relationships, and the fact that I have to be able to visualize who I am in my relationships so I can materialize them. But yet a lot of the focus and attention is going to be much more on the career and the larger contribution as a whole, and making sure that that's all tied up and everything is dealt with. So no need to push either of these things away. It's just going to show you where it's just going to show you the tension with these things, because you can live simultaneously, and we kind of have to. That's kind of what this is about, right? It's just the tension, because they're at cross purposes, that provides the opportunity to grow and to evolve and to learn something from that. And so how do we actually exist in these two places at once without making, taking away from the other, right? We don't want to keep thinking about where we're going, because it takes away from our focus on actually finishing what we started. But then we don't want to completely push away any feeling about manifesting or visualizing what we want to come next, right? These two things can exist, and they will exist at the same time. We're just going to have to lean into the friction that it's causing, because we're getting a lot of messages that are like, you have to just do one or the other, right? So Aries is not very good at doing what anybody says. I'll do what I want because I'm an Aries, and I totally respect that. And I think that that is something we need more of. So then the last piece here is actually the new moon in Capricorn, which is going to be in your 10th house. And so the real challenge here, and what I have been saying to everybody, is let it burn, baby. Let it burn. That is the essence of this new moon in Capricorn on the 2nd. We come into 2022. We have all these crazy transits that are happening. And these two come together, and we set intention around, all of us set intention around letting it burn, right? Looking at the purifying, transformational fire as a transcendent experience, that it shows us simultaneously birth, death, and rebirth in the process of burning, right? Because fire consumes, and then it is reborn in its flame. And so we can transcend the experience in our own self. And for you, Aries, it's going to be in your career, right? In your mission. So Aries is really going through an overhaul, and has for a long time, of what the mission is, right? And a lot of this is going back to, I think, the fact that Chiron has been in the first house now for a while, and as well, and there's some serious healing of the self that really needs to happen in order to then come back around and begin a whole new career, a whole new mission, right? Or to certainly to let one stage go and to let another one come in. And this new moon that's happening on the 2nd is let it burn. Let it burn, let it burn, let it burn, because that is the only way that we purify, right? And this is a big theme for right now, is this burning. And Aries, that should be no problem for you. That is the essence of who you are, is the first spark that lets it all burn, right? And in fact, the alchemical fire that is Sagittarius is very much in line with the value system that you operate within, and gives meaning to what you are doing. It's just the substance of it in Capricorn, in terms of your contribution, is what needs to ultimately go through its own transition. So Aries, I'm going to leave it there for you. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you are interested in getting booking a personal reading, if you're interested in getting more information, getting on my mailing list, and certainly if you are interested in supporting this content, either financially or just through your subscriptions, your likes, your interactions with the content, you can go to my Subscribe Star. That is in the description box below, and you can subscribe for $3 a month, and you can get all of this content and assure that I continue to put this content out. So Aries, you can either go to the description box, or you can just hang out to the end of this video and get more information. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great weekend, and I will see you on the next video.